Welcome to the Rally Point with Dominic Fielder, the author of the King's German series, and myself, Rob McLaren, the author of the Jobert series. Good evening, Dominic Fielder.
Good morning, Rob. How are you?
I'm very well, sir, very well. Each month at the Rally Point, we catch up with friends who enjoy the Napoleonic period, and everyone, we're recording the first 30 minutes of the gathering, but once the recording is over, remain online with us as the conversation continues. This month, we would like to welcome Marc Middleton to the Rally Point. Marc is an experienced historical reenactor. He is a battlefield guide on the Vosges Ranges on the Rhine in France. And he, as a professional translator, is working with me to translate my first book, Frères de la Capucine, into French. Welcome, Marc. How are you today?
Hello, Robert. Hello, everybody. I'm very good, thank you. Happy to be here. Well, everybody, again, good evening. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to present to you. So tonight's subject is going to be the dress and equipment of the Napoleonic French Fusilier of the line. Okay, that's the representation I do when I'm wearing a French uniform. And specifically, it's the French Fusilier from 1814, 1815 that I tend to specialize in that my group specializes in, which is the uniform that the model is wearing at the moment on the right-hand side of the screen. So tonight's presentation, we'll go over the essentials because I did ask Rob for some guidance. When I reached 62 slides, I thought I'm going overboard, and Rob drew me back in. So I've redone it. I still think it's a lot, but we're doing the bare essentials. So the presentation is going to cover four parts: tenue, which means orders of dress; l'armement, that's the weaponry; grand équipement, that is the large equipment that the state gives to you as part of your work as a soldier; and the petit équipement is the secondary items that the state provides to you to do your job. Okay. So first up, we'll talk about the orders of dress. I'm not going to spend a lot of details or a lot of time talking about the details. I'll just highlight the main differences between all of them. But first of all, just let me note the sources that are being used for this presentation. So there is the Règlement sur l'habillement, le grand petit équipement, l'armement des troupes françaises of 1812, which we found in the French military archives at Vincennes Castle in the Paris region. They eventually gave birth to the 1812 Bardin regulations, the new French uniform. We also have used the Manuel de l'administration et vérification des masses d'habillement, also from 1812, which is a sort of incomplete version of the first regulations mentioned. And finally, to cover certain gaps that neither of these documents were able to answer, I've also called upon the Manuel d'infanterie from General Bardin himself of 1813. So, les tenues. I'm going to be talking about two principal orders of dress and a third order, which is not a complete order of dress. It's a variation, but I'll get into that into more details when we get to it. What's the most interesting for people and most easily the most recognizable order is the tenue de service, service dress. So this is for official military duties, okay? What does it consist of? It consists of the shako, the habit veste from 1812. Before that, it was the habit. Pantalon d'étoffe. This is a parade trousers with a very fine sort of elastic woolen material that is used, and black gaiters, okay? So this is what the soldier will be using, for example, if he was on guard duty, if he was doing ceremonies in his garrison, if he was doing parades, that sort of thing. This is in essence the complete official order of dress of the soldier. That's not what he's wearing all the time. Most of the time, actually, when he's in garrisons or camp, he's actually wearing the tenue d'exercice, literally the exercise dress, okay? And it's used for drill and work details. And it comprises what's called the gilet. It's a waistcoat, a sleeved waistcoat, overalls, which is the same trousers visually, but made with a very tough sort of Russian canvas material or a very strong linen. So these things can get dirty. You can use this when you're working as opposed to the pantalon d'étoffe, which is a bit more expensive. And you have the bonnet de police, okay? Be that the old model, which everybody calls bonnet de police, or the new model, as you see here, that everybody tends to call the pokelem. Then you have the tenue de campagne. So the tenue de campagne, literally the campaign dress, but it's not a dress in itself. It's just a variation of the service dress to spare certain expensive items. So amongst them, you would have, for example, the couvre-shako, the shako cover, to protect the expensive brass, and the shako itself, which is just felt and leather. The capote, the gray coat that would be worn, and depending on the orders of the commanding officer of the regiment, normally you'd be wearing the gilet under that if you were on long marches, and you would wrap your habit and put it on the back of your backpack because that's the most expensive item. Overalls you would keep. The pantalon d'étoffe would be in your pack. And you'd be wearing grey marching gaiters, okay? So the grey marching gaiters, they're made with a sort of simple linen fabric, tough linen, and they would be a lot cheaper to use as opposed to the black gaiters, which were made of wool. Oh, of course, I forgot the couvre-giberne. So the couvre-giberne, this is the giberne cover. So the giberne would also be covered with a linen cloth with the number of the regiment written in black letters according to official regulations. That's to protect the leather cartridge box and the decorations around it. The armament itself, well, the classic, yeah, it's the 1777, not the 177, the 1777 Corrigé en 9 model. So you've got some statistics here. So it's a .69 caliber. Wearing, if you're American, it weighs 10.14 pounds. If you're based on the continent like me, 4.6 kilos. And should that fail, you have the trusty old bayonet at the end with its 380 millimeter or 14.96 inches for our British friends, triangular socket bayonet with, might I add, which was different to the British, they had a locking ring mechanism, which you can see at the base of the socket, and they had that since the Ancien Régime. The British Army would only start adopting that, I believe, from the 1830s. Now I would like briefly to go over the grand équipement. So grand équipement literally translates to big equipment, okay? So these are the soldiers' primary military accessories given to him by the state. What do they consist of? Well, first up, the giberne, the cartridge box. So this is without the cartridge box protection cover on it. So as you can see, it's made with cow leather. And on top, depending on the company you were, you had a brass ornament. For fusiliers, from the 1812 regulations onwards, they were to wear a crowned N. Grenadiers, of course, had a grenade, and voltigeurs had the hunting horn. And you can also see that it is held on by what's called the martingale. This is the little strap on the left-hand side, which is attached to a button. This is to give it further stability and to stop it swinging out in the front, in front of you. In the middle of the action. You'd also get the baudrier. So for fusiliers, they only got one baudrier, a cross belt, or just a leather belt. This is to attach the giberne to you, to keep it in place. And it also has, you can just see on the right of the photo, the bayonet frog. So in the bayonet frog, you would put your bayonet scabbard. And when you didn't need your bayonet, you'd put the bayonet in that scabbard. Elite infantry companies within the battalion, the grenadiers and the voltigeurs, they would have a second belt going on the other shoulder. So the fusilier belt, that would be resting on the left shoulder. And the grenadiers and the voltigeurs, they'd have an additional belt resting on the right. And on the other side, on their left, would be their sabre briquet, the little short infantry sword. NCOs and corporals of fusilier companies also had this belt and had the sabre briquet infantry sword as a marks of rank and authority. Alors, strictly speaking, the haversack, the backpack, is not part of the Grand Équipement. It actually doesn't appear on the list of Grand Équipement. It's on another list, but I've included it here for the sake of simplicity of the presentation. So if we take a closer look at the giberne, so it's a black leather box and it's constructed around a wooden block. Okay, so they didn't construct them without the wooden block. You start with the block and then you build around it so it's nice and tight and snug. It's designed to carry two packets on either side where the red arrows are. You have 34 cartridges in each packet, so that's 70 cartridges in total. And in the center, you have 6 holes, of which 5 carry additional cartridges. So these would be the first one you would go to get. And then afterwards, if you had to use a 6, you would have to, if you hadn't done it before, undo your packet and then grab it from the side. You may be wondering, why 6 holes if we've got 5 cartridges in them? Well, it's very simple. The 6th hole actually is it's to contain a little tin pot, very narrow tin pot, like a tube, full of olive oil. Okay, and this olive oil is to help the soldier keep the musket free from humidity. So he just sprinkles olive oil and rubs it in to the metalwork to keep it safe from humidity. With the green arrow, you can also see the little pouch at the front that's supposed to be containing spare flints and for exercise wooden flints. Okay, and the baudrier, the famous crossbelt, is as I said, it's buff leather, so it's not the same leather that's used for the cartridge box as it is for the crossbelt. And here's an image of my own fuel drill. So this is the little tube that keeps my olive oil inside that 6 hole in my giberne. And here is the photo of the cover that goes over it. As said, it's linen. It's just simple linen. It can be waterproofed if needed, but the regulations state that it's supposed to be, for identification purposes, just the regimental number in black. Now, we see all forms of variations within reenactment, okay? Some of them actually write words, some of them put all sorts of images, ends, grenades, etc. The regulations are very clear on what's supposed to be on the cartridge box cover. That is just the number of the regiment in black. That's it. The rest is soldiers' latitude, I would say, within the hobby. The haversack. Okay, so what's the haversack? It's the soldier's wardrobe, pillow, and seat. And it's where you carry your food if you get any. It's made of calfskin tanned leather with the hair on it on the outside. Okay, and they needed to make sure when they built it that the hairs would be pointing downwards, so that if you got rain on it, the hairs would naturally evacuate the rain off it. Inside there were originally 4 compartments. You can see this with the bottom photo. I have given a number to each compartment. Later on, when they changed the model, they actually got rid of compartment number 4, which is a little like bag-like pouch on the front part. That was suppressed, and all you had at the end of it were 3 compartments. So you have the pack itself divided with a divider made of linen in the middle. You've got compartment 1, which is at the back against your back, compartment 2, which is at the front, and compartment 3 is actually a little insert where you can put things inside the lid of the bag. Okay. And well, what I found interesting as well is within the regulations, the infantry regulation of 1813, and even which it made reference to a previous law in 1808, which made a reference to a law of 1804, which made reference to a law of 1793, I believe, which itself made reference to a law of 1788. It says that the men are never to leave their haversacks behind when they are to fight. They, that is the haversacks, allow the soldier to maintain all their maneuverability and to make use of their weapons. Okay, so for me, this obviously seems to have been a debate amongst military authorities whether to drop the pack because it was maybe slowing down maneuverability, or it was making getting access to the cartridge vaults difficult. It clearly concluded after tests, no, it doesn't. In fact, it doesn't stop maneuverability of the soldiers, nor does it stop them using the weapons or gaining access to their cartridges. So they had to keep them on when fighting. Now we move over to the petit équipement, the secondary kits. So petit équipement, literally small or little equipment, okay? These are accessories, but they're not as expensive, but I would say they are still as essential as the big kit. So here is a photo of me during a training weekend with some new conscripts explaining how what should be in their packs and how it should be organized. So no, you don't see it on the photos, but normally you get given 3 shirts, one you wear and the other 2 are in the pack. You get given a caleçon. This is undies, drawers, basically. You only get 1 though. So you can imagine the state of that after a while. You get 4 pairs of stockings. You can just see them at the front of the photo. You get cloth stocks. You get 2 cloth stocks. A sac à distribution, literally distribution bag. It's basically, the best way I can describe it is, imagine a sleeping bag made of linen, and that's what it is. It's used actually for when food is distributed. You come with that and you fill that up with food. It can also be used in certain memoirs I've read of soldiers in 1813. They actually used it as a sleeping bag, actually getting their bodies inside and covering themselves up with blankets or with their greatcoat. And the fact that they're in the bag is when they rolled around at night during their sleep, the cover would not go over them and they would not get cold. And of course, you get given 2 pairs of shoes, okay? So 1 pair you wear, and the other pair should be in that pack ready for you to use. Just a reminder that the shoes at this time, as you can see on the photo, normally they are straight. There's no left and no right. They're straight. And you're supposed to be alternating between left and right of the same pair every other day. This is to stop the leather forming to your feet. As I can attest myself, once the leather shoes have formed to your left foot or your right foot, when you change them, it is highly uncomfortable. That's why I never change them myself. I don't use them enough. But in order to minimize wear and tear, the regulations do state you're supposed to exchange them every other day. And when you wear 1 pair down, you get the other pair out, and hopefully you'll be able to get a new pair to put in the pack ready to be used when you wear them out. I will mention the rest of the equipment that's on the photograph in the following slides. So what else does it include? First of all, musket cleaning kit and tools. So we have here some equipment that's used for the musket cleaning operations. So the first part is the brick dust within that little tin. So that's used with the olive oil in the bottle just behind it. You're supposed to dab the olive oil so that it gets soaked up by the cloth. Then you dab it into the brick dust, and with the brick dust you'll be able to rub all the metal parts and get all the unsavory parts and all the rust out of it. Okay. The tool in the form of a wire is a musket tool. Okay, so the musket tool, in this case, you have 2 ends which are flat, which are in essence screwdrivers. This helps you to take apart the weapon if necessary. And once in one side of the triangle, it's actually not a flat screwdriver type head. It is a round, robust head. This is actually to put inside the lock of your musket to undo the jaws of your cock. So when you need to change flints, you use that part to open it up, change the flint, and you use that part again to tighten it up. It's a lot quicker than to do it with the screwdriver part. Next to that, so if I just get the mouse, this interesting tool, you don't see this a lot in reenactment, but it's a spring tool. Inside the musket, you have a spring. Okay, so it's inside the mechanism of the musket. There's also another spring outside that you can use this on. But if you take off that part, the tension that's in that spring will, of course, uncoil. And if you don't have that tool, you'll never be able to coil it back up to put it back in. Okay, so when you're taking it to pieces, this tool is actually indispensable. Otherwise, you have an unworkable musket. In front here, you have this is a wooden flint. So they would use this for exercises. The real flints would only be used if you were serious about using them. So that could be fire practice or fighting itself. Here you have the tire-bord. So the tire-bord is a little tool, like a corkscrew, that you fix at the end of the baguette, the ramrod. And with that, you can extract any paper wadding that's inside the barrel. If you've rammed and you can't get it to fire, you can insert this worm and it will get it out for you safely. Okay. This tool is actually a tool for putting buttons of gaiters in place. It shouldn't be on the photo, but once I'd taken it, it was too late for me to go back and change the arrangements. Here is the épinglette. You also got this. So épinglette, it's a pricker in English. So it's attached to one of the buttons of the Abbey. When your touch hole, so that's the hole that communicates the prime into the main chamber of the musket where the bullet and the rest of the powder is, that can get clogged up quite easily with usage. So in order to clear that passageway, you'd need this épinglette, this pricker that you would stab through. And once you stab that through, you could normally use the musket again. And next to that is the worm for extracting wadding and cartridges that you don't wish to fire or can't fire safely out of the musket barrel. And here I have I've gone further than the attachment. Normally you're supposed to only screw it around the top end, but I've gone a little bit further just to show you how it fixes on. You also got a personal hygiene kit. Okay, so this would consist, as you can see, of a comb, of what's called a blaireau for getting your shaving soap on you. You'd also get a coupe shoe razor. This is leather to keep to sharpen the blade. And this would be basically your hygiene kit that you'd get and that you'd have to present every now and then at reviews to make sure you hadn't thrown it away or sold it or used it for something else. Okay. Fusiliers were expected to be clean shaven. Beards were forbidden for absolutely everyone except the sappers. And even then, we have a lot of recent information that's come to light that sappers would appear to have not been bearded. They would have they appeared to have put fake beards on them for parades, but they were clean shaven. That's something that's coming out at the moment. The research is still ongoing, but I thought that'd be worth pointing out. So Fusiliers clean shaven moustaches authorized for grenadiers. Technically, voltigeurs should have moustaches, but because they considered themselves the other elite company, they tended to sport moustaches equally. And then afterwards, cleaning a cloth cleaning kit. So that's cleaning your uniform. That's the top photo. And you'd also get a sewing kit given to you. So you'd have two brushes. One is for the Abbey and the other one is for the shoes. This one's for the jacket and this one's for the shoes. You'd also have what's called a patience. This is where you would insert the button here. You would slide it along the end to this side. And then with your brush, you'd be able to brush that button up without staining the white or the cloth of your uniform. Okay. Again, another gaiter tool. So this is to drag, but when you're sewing buttons onto the gaiters, this is a tool that will help you drag the button through the buttonhole of the gaiter cleanly. It can also help you put them on if they're very, very tight. They get a good grip on them. And of course, they'd give you what's called a martinet. Okay, this is a whip for beating out the dust from your uniform. This was also supposed to be carried with you. It's not a cat and nine tails. It's not for punishments. It's just for beating out dust from your different woolen uniform parts. And of course, the sewing kit, you're expected to maintain your equipment when you're out on the field or in barracks. So you've got several things here. Here you have buckles for the cloth stock. These are also buckles for the shoes. And here you have leather straps to go under the gaiter. So once your gaiter strap wore out, or once it snapped or broke, you'd have to put a new one in to keep the gaiter from disappearing up your leg while you were walking. This is not technically petit équipement. Okay, this does not appear in the petit équipement list. However, it is something that was quite important to a soldier that I thought I would insert it into this part of the presentation. It's the livret militaire, military booklet. This basically is the soldier's passport and bank account and depot check. Within the pages of this document, the first pages outline the identity of the person, what his name is, where he was born, what year he was born, date of birth, his parents, where does he come from, when did he join the army, when did he join this regiment. And it also includes a part where they describe your facial features, your nose, the color of your eyes, your eyebrows, your hair, the shape of your mouth, the shape of your chin, your face. Is it a long face? Is it a round face, etc.? Because remember, gentlemen, this is the days before photography was invented. So if you found a man, you had to be able to try to identify him using the information that was in his livret militaire, and also the information that was within the company books describing him, to make sure you've got your man. It would also contain details of previous service, if you served in other companies within the regiment, or if you served in another battalion of the regiment, or even if you served in another regiment entirely. It would note any promotions. It would note campaigns and battles that you participated in, if necessary. There would be a long list of items. So all the items I've highlighted before, they are inserted in another part of the livret, and it states how many you get at what frequency. And they check 4 times a year. There are 4 general inspections to see the state of your equipment. Should you wear something out before it is due, you will get it replaced. However, you will pay for it out of your own pocket. Okay. And that's all the equipment that the state gives you, of course. And the middle part, which is the most important and also the most numerous in terms of pages, is what's called the compte courant, your bank account. This is before the times of ATM machines and whatnot. So when you got paid, or when you were given money or taken docked money, you would, the company fourier, so that's the quartermaster of the company, he would note down, got paid this amount of money, this is his salary, or this is salary due, that's late, or this is squad money for food, or this is squad money that's due. So it's basically a long bank account statement in the middle of it, which makes it for a very boring read if you've ever had these in front of you. The most important pages are the first 2, where it actually describes the man and his service. Now, I could have put this earlier on, but I felt that it was better to see how this works. The regulations are very clear and very fastidious with how the backpack should be filled. So remember, compartment 1 is the long compartment of the pack that covers the entire length of the pack, and that's at the back. It's separated from compartment 2 by a linen separator. And Bardin, in his Manual of Infantry, clearly states that in compartment 1, you have to roll the 2 extra shirts really tight, as you can see, and they go at the bottom. Then afterwards, next to them are the socks, and they're supposed to be bunched together. Then the gaiters are around here somewhere. Then afterwards, you'd also put your neck stock, which is here, your spare neck stock next to it. Handkerchief would go around here. And then on top of that would be your trousers. So if you're wearing your parade trousers, your service trousers, the really expensive one, your overalls would be here. And if you're wearing the overalls, of course, the other trousers would come here. Within the trousers, you would be expected to put your martinet. Okay, so the whip goes inside the trouser that you're not using. And they're very clear also that the trouser that you put in here, you're supposed to store it inside out. You'd have your sewing kit here. The patience would be in there. The brushes, one brush, the copper brush would be in there. And the sewing kit accessories would be there. And you'd also put your gilet if there was one, but they don't mention it on top. And if you're wearing the gilet, you should be rolling your habit inside the capote on the roll outside on the top of the backpack. So that's the first compartment, the compartment that's next to your back. And they explain it's organized like this because these are all soft material items. They will not hurt your back during the march. Then you have compartment 2, which is the front part. That front part is for the dirty laundry. And also, and this is pretty disgusting, it's also the part where you're supposed to be storing your bread and the meat that you have cooked with your comrades, should you not have eaten it beforehand. Yummy. Mind you, the linen's dirty and you're going to clean it anyway. So if it gets mucky with the bread and the meat, that's probably why they say put it in that compartment. Lastly, the third compartment that's inside the lid of the backpack, you should put your spare shoes, your metal sponge, your shoe brush, the grease box, the blackening box, the whitening bag. The whitening bag, this is the powder that you mix with water to make what's called blanc d'Espagne. So literally translated white of Spain. This is clay pipe, white clay pipe for the belts, for the white belts. And also your brick dust goes in its box inside that same compartment as well. Okay, so we already, as you can see, have an army which is very detailed. Everything is calculated, everything is regulated, everything is documented in order for the soldier to perform to the maximum amount of the capacity of the material that he's been using. And also what's good for the hobby is with all this information, we as reenactors know how to be really good with our representations. Voilà.
NCOs supposedly were different, and I'm not sure, but this is supposedly the block from inside of a NCO's gibber.
That's a
And
sergeant.
sure.
The sergeant's box was smaller and it had less holes. That's supposed to be for the musket tool, I believe. Certainly one of those holes is for the olive oil tube.
Roger. So I wasn't sure if it's the same amount of cartridges or not. That was all.
No. It's smaller, so probably small. But Bardin does the 1813 manual does not. Or I haven't found the reference to how many sergeant boxes are supposed to hold. This is a private soldier's box that I've stated.
Yeah, this is the only sergeant's box I've ever seen. That's the only reason I've kept it. So,
Yeah.
Mark, with the sort of reality of what's happening in France in 1813, how realistic do you think that these uniform changes are uniform in the army?
It doesn't happen in one day, that's for sure. And we have other ordinances and other orders and other decrees coming out of Paris in 1813. For example, the one that I saw last year, which struck me as very interesting, was a decree which authorized non-buff leather to be used and not white. So they were authorizing general calfskin cross belts in black leather to be distributed amongst the troops. 1813 was the beginning of the end. So, and also Napoleon had mobilized everybody that was left in France, but there just was not enough kit. So there's a lot. This is happening at one point. The 1812 uniform, it looks nice, it's great, but it did not arrive overnight. In 1812, there was probably not a single regiment that was wearing the 1812 uniform. 1813, there was certainly more. The National Guard units that were converted to line infantry regiments, they were wearing them apparently for sure. 1814, a bit more units would start wearing them. And in Waterloo, for example, we know the first line infantry regiment was wearing Bardin uniform by that point, but we had a slight peace and the army was going finally through the phasing of changing the uniform. But the 85th regiment in 1815 was still wearing the old habit long. It was still not wearing the Bardin uniform.
But Mark, that was a brilliant presentation.
Thank you.
It's very
Thank you
good.
so much, Mark. Yeah.
I just had a quick
my
question
pleasure.
about the-
Okay, thank you, everyone. Fascinating conversation so far. I'm about to end our recording, but please stay online as we continue the chat. To wrap up this month's Rally Point, thank you, Mark Middleton, for joining us. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
For those of you who have joined us this evening, live this evening, thank you for your time with us. And next time, why not join us here at the Rally Point next month when we will catch up with Hans Carl Weiss, who will be taking through the fourth and final presentation on the smoothbore musket. Now, simply contact Dominic and I for your Zoom invite. Our details are at the end of the video, and share Rally Point with your friends so we can hear from them as well. Now, any previous Rally Point chats are up on our YouTube channel. And if you've enjoyed this Rally Point, please leave a quick review. So it's good morning from me, and it's good night from him.
Good night.